Monthly meeting USD 379 to order. The first item on the agenda is approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Recognition of guests. Thanks for everybody for coming. Appreciate your interest in USD 379. Next, do we have anything on citizens open? Nobody signed up. Okay, communications. Have a couple thank yous here. I'll just pass them around. That we got, that you can read. Anybody else have any other communications they want to share? Okay. Next is, get that closed. Board comments, positive board comments.
A couple things. I
Go
just wanted
ahead.
to thank the staff that's been working over the summer to get all the buildings ready. It kind of a thankless job once everyone vacates to get everything back up in shape. So thank you for their hard work. And then thank you to all of those who have helped with summer learning. I'm so thankful for the KISA money to be able to provide that for our students. And it's just fun. And it's fun to see them out and about, and they look to be having a great time. So thank you to all those staff members and bus drivers and staff members who turn into bus drivers for doing that.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to the policy. Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
So this is the student out of district transfer policy. We don't have to have final approval till January. You guys contemplated some questions, and Dusty and I met with some of our crew, and we did make some more edits in response to some of your feedback and questions last time there, and read in the current presentation. And kind of quick summary of that is we added a little bit more few more guidelines for us to utilize when determining continued enrollment or not. And we felt like, council felt like those were well within, allowable within the statute. We feel like it'll allow us to make some determinations on future enrollment, so. And we can let that one hang out there. And again, as we have discussed, if you guys are happy with it, or if you have any other comments, we'd be happy to look at those or go back to the drawing board. But the plan, I think, would be, depending on what R&R you choose tonight, we have to hold a hearing with this policy, that we would align the hearing for this policy.
And the
on the
policy hearing has to be by
January. Well, the policy has to be in effect by January.
January. My thought is to just hold off a little bit longer on adopting it until we get some feedback from a couple other districts to see if they adopt it first. And kind of see where things shake out through the fall with other districts.
Yeah, we have plenty of time up to
We have
whatever. you
plenty of
guys-
time. I don't feel like we have a rush to hold that hearing.
I thought it was interesting who has priority to fill a seat.
Mhm,
In district doesn't have any priority at all.
correct.
What happened to the other 26 pages of this document?
That we pulled this policy out, and then the rest of the policy that you guys have reviewed for the last 30 days is
It's
down
down
for.
below in the business items.
Any other comments about this policy? Okay. Move on then. Consent agenda. Any questions? Done?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Carries 5-0. Reports, let's see here. Board member reports, anybody have anything you want to report on this month? Okay, next be superintendent report, Brett.
Thank you. Mine's pretty shy this month, but all the work that we've been working on here in this office and throughout the district has been in your business and discussion items. Craig is here, and Craig, I don't know, you can help me along here, but just thought we'd give a few updates on summer projects and how things are going. You want to just exploring where they are and where they're headed next?
They'll
Craig?
be finished at the high school tomorrow, I believe, and then they gotta wait to do, Lincoln after school over, and then go to Wakefield to. Kinley, or, middle school should be done. What else we got?
The concrete grind all
Carpet's
done.
done. The grinding, they're still, they gotta be finishing that pretty quick.
I noticed there were some spots I didn't notice, I hadn't drove around here, but Wakefield where they grinded, where the curb was painted yellow.
I can repaint that.
Probably need to have somebody go back and touch those spots up, at least like where bus loading and stuff like that is.
Oh, yeah, the tennis courts are done.
Yeah, they look
Really
good.
nice.
They look really good. Yeah.
Ray Roofing will be here this month to fix the storm damage at the high school, and also we're doing that roof,
Looks like there's.
auditorium north.
Mhm.
Yeah, look like they're downstairs there.
Then I'll just go on down the list here. Scoreboards are still, both scoreboards scheduled to be here at 1st of August, and the installer has this on his schedule, so as soon as they're here, he'll be here to put those in. Sidewalks, electronic access, all the doors from that last year's project are done. And then we haven't heard back. We applied to do the rest of the doors to the school safety grant. And it helped pay, I think, about $25,000 of this round. And so as soon as we know on that grant, on how much we will get, we'll bring a proposal to you to hopefully utilize that grant and some other strategies to do all the rest of them. But again, we're waiting for that grant. Last year, we got notified at some point in the month of July on the award. So we're
So
hoping
you're
by,
posted hearing.
yeah, we think so. Probably by August would be good. That's anything else, Craig, that you can think of? I think we're good.
All I had to do toilet paper now.
Oh, yeah, tell them about that.
Soap dispenser. Toilet paper installed all over the district. Look at the, save some money there. Looks good, they work really good.
So Craig went out and found a different rep, but when you go with a rep, they also come with all the dispensers that goes with them, but at a significantly reduced savings by case on those paper goods. And so it'll be a big savings, and thanks Craig for finding that and helping us find some ways to save some dollars. So that's all I had.
Okay,
Is there any update on the lights at the football field at Wakefield? I know we were gonna wait until somebody was gonna be able to come in to be able to get up that height. Do we have any updates on that?
We do, we're waiting on a second quote from another company to see what they cost, but we're hoping to get them all done this summer, so. Yeah, hopefully we can get a lift here one time and use the lift in the whole district.
Okay. Any other questions for Brett? All right, moving on. Anita. Any questions for Anita? Like you need some pairs.
Yeah, had a resignation today and hired to replace it, like, that's like, whoo. We got some openings.
Any questions for Anita on her report?
Check out her webpage. Mary Mellon made it look real nice picture.
Think we're gonna have to contract out your first item, you had first person on there. You said something about contracting. Was it an SLP or somebody?
School site.
School site.
Mhm. Yeah.
Any questions for Anita? All right, Jacqueline.
I just put some information with the kickoff for the school year, and just a reminder, the 10th, any of you who can come for the kickoff or help at lunch, we would love to have you there. And one thing I put at the very end is just to give you some.
It's our lunch from today.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? That sounds so,
It's coming soon.
it is coming.
Sure is. So we will bring proposal to you in September to do the other half of the staff laptops, but wanted to share with you what we have sold by way of the staff and the seniors. So the staff computers were about $225 and the seniors were $275. Sold 24 staff and 21 seniors. So once we take out the tax portion, $11,175. So. And we will be sending off for recycling. So this fall, once we get the new ones here, and I hope I can share that with you when we do capital outlay this fall as well. So.
Anything else? Good. Any questions for Jacqueline? All right, moving on to the business items. Revenue neutral rate. Brett?
Yes, sir. We have put together a couple of options for you to consider. And it just as a reminder, this is from Senate Bill 13 from a couple of years ago, and it really speeded up the timeline to get our budget process complete and done. And especially when software doesn't come out from KSDE, we didn't get that until very late. So we really had just a few days. And again, it's all we do for R&R. We just do the levy funds and budget. So we don't do any of the other special funds. We just do the levy funds because they're all that matter, because that's what we have to have turned into the county clerk by July 20th. And so we did complete the levy funds and worked really hard to try to produce an option for your consideration that did not exceed revenue neutral rate. And we did put one forth that does that. If you scroll to the bottom, and I apologize, so I was a little wordy, but there's a lot of cause and effects to different options. And so if you look at option A, that would put us in a position to not exceed R&R. It is a viable option, but we do a few things in order to accomplish that. Number one, from 2 years ago, we're still making up for that year that I think 2 years in a row, we were close to 40 million increased in assessed valuation. And for most public entities, that truly increases the value of the mill, which increases your budget, your operational budget. In the school district world, it does not, because we are a pretty good sized aid district. And so we get that aid from the pool. Remember, we all kick 20 mills into a pool, goes to Topeka, and then every school district's ranked 1 to 286, and they redistribute those 20 mills based on your rank of assessed valuation. And so last year we took a hard hit in capital outlay and bond and interest, because in bond and interest and capital outlay, your aid gets fully impacted the following year. So that year we dropped down to 45 was because we had a big increase in assessed valuation, and we also kept our same amount of aid. And then the next year, assessed valuation went up another 10 million, and then capital outlay and bond and interest got hit. I think we were around 30, 31 and dropped to 16. And so we had to recoup those funds. And the only way to do that is to bring your levy back up. And so LOB is a 3-year average on aid. And so we got hit this year with our first round of a reduction in state aid. So I think we went from 38 to 34%, which is, and I put the dollar amount, what that meant to us in there. And we do need to anticipate that for at least the next 2 years, because we'll be continuing to catch up to that increased assessed valuation.
For the next 2 years, you think we'll go back down another 4%, continue to march down that because.
That'd be a fair guess. It's a little hard because this is the first year in 15 years that our assessed valuation went down.
Correct.
And after visiting with our county and some folks at KSDE, we're such a large ag-based district that's largely due in part property tax. I don't think anybody's property taxes went down, but ag taxes are figured on an 8-year rolling average based on production. And so ag production, I guess, over a cycle of 8 years, that formula comes from the state, and then our county appraiser plugs in that formula that he gives. And according to some sources, they believe we should plan on that for at least the next couple of years. That assessed valuation going down. In regards to the aid and LOB, I think a 4% decrease for the next 2 years should be safe. And so is what that means to get a revenue neutral rate that did not exceed. We did a few things. Number one, we did not adopt 31.6, which is the state average. That's what you're allowed to do. You can adopt that percentage general fund. And this year it's 31.6. Last year we were at 31. And so we reduced that to 30 and a little bit of change, 30%. So that's about $100,000 there. And then is what we would do to help make up for the levy or keep the levy down a little bit. That big transfer we did into contingency last month, we would utilize a portion of that, around 140,000, and that might be a little high. But remember, when we do R&R, we give the county clerk the highest possible rate. And then once we do the rest of our budget, we can always come down. We just can't go over what we told them. And so we might be able to lower that transfer if you guys go for that. But right now, I think it's sitting at 140,000. We have transferred from contingency over to LOB, which again, just requires the amount of taxes that you have to ask for. And doing those two things keeps that rate a little bit lower, allows us not to exceed. But regardless of which option you choose, we do need to plan for, because we're going to keep seeing that reduction in aid. So the LOB levy will go up no matter what we do the next 2 years if we want to make up for aid. Otherwise, we make cuts or reductions somewhere to make up for that if we want to operate off of the same dollar amount. And so I think it's really important to know if you would go to exceed the revenue neutral rate, it would do a couple of things. Number one, capital outlay would stay at 8. Number two, you would ask for the full 31.6% of general fund, and you wouldn't transfer from contingency. And so, but you would exceed your revenue neutral rate, but your peaks and valleys would be reduced going from this year to the following. And so an option, if you don't exceed revenue neutral and we do the transfer, one strategy could be this year we transfer 140,000 into LOB. The next year we cut that in half to soften the blow. We stair step it down to where we could do that over the next 2 years to try to help balance out the loss in aid, but also not have taxes go or the levy go higher.
What else do we use the contingency for?
It truly is a contingency for the unknown. What we can't foresee coming.
Say that boiler broke down at the middle school in the middle of winter.
That came out capital outlay.
Yeah, but it
But it
couldn't come out of
couldn't have-
contingency reserve. Or something, you know,
And don't we keep that at a percent?
it's like 4%. Yeah,
Or
so we try to keep
five?
it.
Yeah, we shoot for our total cash reserves. We shoot for somewhere between 15 and 20% of all funds.
Okay,
And we're at 17.3 right now.
okay, that was my question.
So the question would be, I would ask is, if you go revenue neutral, the mill levy is gonna go down actually like a little bit. I mean, like 0.025. If you don't, if we vote to exceed it, it's gonna go up 2.6 mils. Over 50, which this is starting my 30th year on this board, we've never had a mill levy over, or it's never been over 50 in the time I've been on the board. So that's just something to think about. I think with the money that we're fortunate to have in the carryover, and, you know, maybe not do so much next year, but do that this year, we could probably, the capital outlay, we're gonna lose about 250,000 by going down to 7 from 8.
And you bring up a great point, Jeff. So something that a factor that we never figure into our long-term capital outlay budget is interest on idle funds, and all
Yeah.
interest on idle funds goes into capital outlay.
That's true.
And we have, this year, it's the highest we've ever brought in, and I think we brought in 175,000 in interest on idle funds and 150,000.
So actually that
That-
blow, that blow would be about 75,000 instead of 250,000. If we do it that way, as far as that goes.
So I'm hearing you say you would like to not exceed revenue neutral.
At this time, I think for
That-
this year,
That is
for this
also,
year, I
that's
think
also
we
how
can,
I feel.
we can probably make it and be okay by not.
I think the greater issue too is how to educate the public on school finance because it is so tricky. And they don't understand when their mills go down for county and city. They don't understand why our school district money is not treated the same. And it's very complicated. School finance is not, you know, you get this much from the county and everyone does that because we pool and then there's, you know, equalization on LOB and equalization on general fund and all those things that go into it. It's very complicated.
And I think the simplest way I've been able to process it and think about it is state aid basically means you're operating on Manhattan's money, Johnson County, Wichita School District. So we are, like in this year LOB, we're at 34%. So for every dollar, we are getting 34 cents
From
from
somewhere else.
to operate our budget.
Well, and that's why the 20 mil levy, it has never changed.
Correct.
Because that's the state's way of helping all them small districts compared to a big district that can collect more tax at the
So
local level compared to what we.
those school districts with higher tax base don't get any money back.
Correct.
Exactly. That's why he said, you know,
I know, but I'm just making that very clear that
yeah, when everybody throws in 20 mils
Some
and the
people
state
get
divvies
zero.
it back out, a lot of them big school districts don't get anything back
Yeah.
out of it, so. But I think with what I see in number wise and, you know, if we transfer that 140 and if we took our interest and put into capital outlay, we're gonna be about where we were if we, and not raise the mill levy, so that would be my take on it. So that
So that does mean that we would put off a couple of the projects that we had set for potential this coming year.
Potentially, since I think based on what we've seen now, what the boiler, I think we saved around, I don't have it in front of me. It was a significant number. I'd hate to say it, I can't remember what it was, but my recommendation would be we proceed with the plan that you guys adopted this year, and then when we redo that capital plan in January for the next 5, we adjust accordingly. That would be my thought, but
And see what money we get from the grant that would fund for this and, okay.
But yes, it will likely mean when you guys come and do capital outlay planning in the winter, we're probably gonna have to make some decisions about what deferred maintenance items have to get either pushed down the road or not done.
Any other questions about it?
Then we need to kind of talk dates. So something that I learned through this process was if you do not exceed revenue neutral rate, then you go back to the old publishing guidelines, pre-R&R. So those of you that were on the board, remember, we always had to set a special meeting for budget hearings or budget presentation. We fall back to that timeline according to statute. So if you exceed, you have until October 1st to file your final budget. If you do not exceed, you tilt back to, I think it's August 31st. Don't have it in front of me, but which means that we need to hit our
August first.
We need to have a
We have
budget hearing
something.
day sometime
correct.
Before August 1st or by
Well, budget presentations first.
first, yeah.
And then at budget presentation, we would set our hearing. We could set it tonight too. It's fine. But if we do it before, if you have a calendar in front of you, as long as, and we have to hit the dispatch
Publishing dates.
publishing dates, it has to be to the dispatch by 5 o'clock on Friday to be in the paper the following week. And then it has to, run for 10 days and we can't have our hearing.
Prior to those.
Has to be at least the 11th day or greater, but not more than 20. So if we hit that week of July 24th to do a budget presentation, you guys approve the budget. And I know it's fair week.
It's fair week.
I see y'all. We just will.
That's early.
It's fine.
What's that, what's the Monday? That's the 24th is Monday?
I'm proposing the 24th or 25th.
I can do the 24th or 25th.
April said you could do either day too.
Wide open.
Everybody good? So you want to do it Monday or Tuesday?
Monday and day is easier.
Monday's easier.
It is.
Are you selling hot dogs at the fair?
It's just fair check-in is
Oh,
the night of the
I'm
25th.
just kidding.
So I'm not, I can
So,
be here.
6
but-
o'clock on,
but Monday
6
is easier.
o'clock on the
24th.
24th. Is that right? The 24th?
Yes.
So let's do 6 o'clock on the 24th.
For budget
Budget,
presentation.
presentation.
And that will allow us to hold our budget hearing at our regular meeting on the 14th.
Yep, yep.
Okay. And I remember last year at the budget hearing, we talked about condensing that amount of time because we didn't have any patrons. I don't know that we have to. I just remember that was a conversation that we had at budget hearing. So,
That's up to you guys, go set up whatever you want.
okay, well, we can decide that later. This,
And just whatever an hour, but if whatever rate we submit on the 20th, we can't exceed, and just so you guys know, many districts, if not the majority by far across the state, always set their R&R much higher than they think they're gonna be, so that if something happens throughout the year, something funky with tax collections or whatnot, we will not be able to do that, just so you guys know. Usually when we do it and we know we're gonna exceed, we'll bump that up and give us some cushion just in case something weird were to happen. But I just disclaimer, just want you to be sure, be aware of that. Even if we republish, you can't exceed it.
We'll still be able to pay salaries and keep the lights on.
Yes, and I think that's the big thing, is the only reason we're in a great position to be able to do this. Number one, we've managed our finances very well. We have some cushion that we can operate with some flexibility. And number three, the Gannon case and our legislators that have now approved the extra money to general fund, because that's the only way we're able to give the raises that I think we're gonna give a little bit later tonight, is because that base aid per pupil continues to go up and the state kicks that in out of their excess revenue, and it's set for the following year too. So that really helps for us to plan. We know it's gonna be the CPSI 3-year average for next year. They're anticipating that being around 5.1%. So we can, I feel like, very comfortably go into next year with a solid budget, knowing that we're gonna have that extra base aid per pupil and still hopefully be able to give some salary increases for the following year to keep up with inflation and anything else.
Thanks for all the work on that.
Any other questions?
We typically have it, and most districts don't. It's more of just an FYI, this is what we're submitting to the county, and you guys give your blessing when you adopt the budget.
Any other questions on the R&R? No. Okay, we're gonna move on to 23-24 school year appointments. You've got a list of things there. Any questions on that?
I move to approve the 2023-2024 school year appointments as presented.
Have a motion?
Second,
Second, any further questions? All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Policy updates next. Any questions on any of that? Got a month or so to look at it.
And I did load a document we got from Keisha today. I put it in the gap.
Oh, we gotta
Yeah,
go back and do a gap
resolution.
motion. You want to make a
Isn't that
special
part of that?
motion on that?
Don't we usually? The motion to approve resolution 1723B.
Yeah, hang on, I got that here.
In the. Was it purposely emotional? Do you need another? motion?
71023B. Yeah, we need to make a motion to pass resolution 71023B, which I will do that at this.
Okay.
It's fine. Huh?
is that your motion?
Yep, that's my motion.
Seconded.
I was waiting for you to.
I have a motion in a second. Any further discussion? And it's about the financial statements and financial reports is what that resolution is. Any questions on that? All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right.
Okay.
Next. Policies.
So just to, again, like, that first one about the AG closing school buildings, I was trying to read through the form that you had sent earlier. And I saw like pieces of this in there. I just didn't know where did this all come from?
So when legislation passes a new law that applies to school districts, the attorneys at KSB interpret that law and recommend policy for every school district to adopt. And their purpose is, their counsel is to review the statute and recommend policy to ensure that our policy aligns with the law. And that's what we put in front of you, the straight version from the KSB's.
Because our resolution this year was that if the school district closes the building, then we have to get approval from state legislators before we can actually.
Yeah, my understanding is it's,
Yeah,
There
I
was
just
some-
thought that little slim part of it, I just wondered it kind of blew up a little extra than what it was in that little section. That's just what I was curious of as far as where,
It's just wording that makes sure that our policies align with the law. And so it's not that this is anything that's coming down the pipe. We just, our policy book needs to be reworded, because now we have to take this additional step. And I think the purpose from the legislative point of view was they didn't want school districts having full autonomy on giving away buildings, is kind of the impression I got. And so,
that was the
because
section that I read in there, yes, that was kind of the impression that I got.
that was the
from-
impression that I got from the legislative session.
I just didn't know like what our original wording was.
we didn't
versus
have an
like-
AG.
We didn't have.
It's a
any-
new
If
policy.
it's red and underlined, it's completely new word.
Okay.
It was
And
never.
that
there
comes
before.
from KSB. It's where it came, all this came from. These are the updates they recommend. So if it's in red, that's never been there before.
So we never had overnight accommodations written out before?
Is it all in red?
Well, yeah.
Well, if it's
red.
red and struck through,
I just.
Yeah.
Whatever struck through,
Never
yeah.
had
it's
that on paper.
revised if it's red and yeah, well.
You know, that's why we're members of KSB. They have a team of about 8 attorneys that is all they do is school law and school finance. And we rely on them to provide us with good sound policy to protect us. And
And then the Acacia part today that was downloaded
yeah,
talks about, look it up here. Non-public school students to participate.
yeah, so they're working on, so technically, again, it was a law that was passed last year. It hit July 1st, actually, is when the law says it goes into effect. And so Keisha is still trying to update and prepare their policy and their recommendations out to member organizations such as us. And I know our ADs have several different Zoom meetings scheduled over the course of the next couple of weeks. But this is some clarification on, hey, if you have a family that would like to do this, this is the thought process of how they're gonna do it. They're gonna have to apply through Keisha, do some verifications through Keisha before they come to us. But as you can see, it's my understanding, they don't even have that up and running yet, but that they're working on that.
This Acacia deal, that's something we need to pass tonight.
It's in policy updates.
Okay. Any other questions about policies? Updates, changes? Need a motion to approve?
I move to give final approval to the policy updates as presented. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Next is ratification of the negotiated agreement for 23-24. Paige, you got anything you want to add? You were on the negotiation team.
We had a positive negotiations with the Teachers Association, and feel like we, as a board, we're gonna approve the compensation here in a little bit, but felt like we offered them you know, the money that, any money that we had left over was offered towards salaries, and So the items there that were under negotiations are in the packet. And what was? Any questions on any of the items that?
Need a motion to ratify for 23-24.
I move to get final approval of ratification of the 2023-2024 negotiated agreement as presented.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Next is approval of 23-24 handbooks. Any questions on those? They call the changes or all highlighted and everything.
And we've continued to do our best to continue to align this where it's reasonable and it works, align classified handbook to our negotiated agreement. So language is the same where it can be. A great example is in the language that you guys negotiated for in regards to some more comp lead type stuff. We also added that parallel in the classified handbook. Several of Mr. McCoy and Mr. Easterberg's proposals to help recruit some custodians and bus drivers. Some of those strategies and tools are in the handbook now. And so if you recruit, and help me if I'm not reading it right now, but if you're an employee of our district and you recruit a bus driver or custodian, and we're not gonna just specify to those, we kind of wrestled with, well, how do you know what qualifies and what doesn't? As we know, times can change of what's hard to fill and what's not. And so we'll keep a list of qualified positions on our website. And so if there's a bus driver that we haven't been able to fill for a long time, or a custodian or another classified type position, we would list it there. And if you're an employee of our district and you recruit that person, fill out the form, tell us you recruited them, and they stay with us for 90 days, you get $500. And sounds like some other districts have had some really good success. And there's several other things. Increased activity duty pay. That hadn't had an increase in a while. It's set at the base, so it continues to step up a little bit. Did some stuff to try to encourage activity driving, increase that rate. They're driving for us anyways. They get a little bit higher mileage rate than they had before. Just some things that I think were great recommendations from these guys, and I think will really help impact our employees. Or raise the salary, the hourly wage by 50 cents, offer a step, so it'll be 75 cents. And then we're also doing the $600 a month per employee for health insurance. And then also, if you're coming back and working with us, you'll get another $1,000 retention incentive. And so that's a pretty sizable increase for our classified staff. And glad that you guys were willing and able to do that. So thank you.
Any questions about handbooks?
I move to get final approval for the 2023-2024 classified and substitute handbooks as presented.
Motion. I'll second it. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Next item, employee compensation for 23-24.
So this is a similar package offered to all those people that don't fall under the classified handbook or don't fall under the negotiated agreement. Would be the 4.08%, same as the other groups of employees, and the health insurance and the retention incentive.
Any questions on that?
I move to get final approval for the salary increase or salary employees not covered by the negotiated agreement for the 2023-2024 fiscal year as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Student and adult meal prices 23-24. Quite an increase.
So our contract with our food service management company states that just like they say per pupil, they can increase meal prices at or below the consumer price index. So basically inflation rate. And as we all know, go to the grocery store, food's expensive. And so they did indicate to us that they are taking the highest rate. But as a reminder, our students are eating lunch, and we have a problem that's not very common in the school district world as it relates to food service. It's the number one biggest business inside of our school district. It's around $1 million a year. And historic pre-chart wells, we were having to supplement food service by, depending on the year, $40,000 to $80,000. And since we've had chart wells, we have not had to supplement food service fund. In fact, we have a surplus. And so, but food service money, you can only spend on food service. It can't be spent outside of that program because it's federal money. And so you can only carry 3 months worth of your expenses in the food service fund. And so we're doing several upgrades that our kitchen staff has been asking for a long time. So you'll start to see some of these come in over the next few months. Some lunch trays that are needed, some hot carts that were broken and not working very well. Getting some prices on maybe some dishwashing capabilities at sites that don't have it. We go pick up all the trays, take them to the high school and wash them there. Some different things like that, because again, we have to spend that money on food service. And so kind of look down the road, we're looking at our walk-in freezer at the high school where we basically, they keep all their surplus food that they divvy out to all the schools. They hold about $40,000 to $50,000 worth of food in there at any given time. And the, what do you call it, the freezer compressor part, they're very old and we've spent lots of money on them in the last few years, and it takes the old kind of, I don't know.
It's a dinosaur.
Yeah. And so there's 2 units, a primary and a backup.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at possibly seeing if we can, look at that, so we don't have a big insurance claim on spoiled food. So a few things coming your way down the road here. So.
Are we gonna do a big push to have people apply for free and boost again?
Yeah.
I see that
We
the
appreciate your
rate,
hard work on
like
that.
they moved it from 42,000 to 45,000 for a family of 5 to qualify for free and reduced.
It's something, and we'll talk about this during budget. It's a good question. The biggest difference is anybody who's qualified for direct cert or free and reduced since COVID has not had to reapply.
Oh,
You're automatically grandfathered in, and typically pre-COVID,
yeah.
you had to
we had
apply
to
every
apply every
year.
year.
And so that's gonna be a big adjustment for a lot of families who haven't had to reapply in
3 years.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Going
Oh,
on
they
40.
have to now.
They have to,
in
yeah.
August.
They'll have to this year.
Oh.
But they can't do it till July.
They can't apply for free and reduced meals until July 1. Yes, but right now, people are having to reapply for all of their aid.
Other benefits too.
Yeah, so there could be a lot of people that no longer receive it.
And that is a tricky thing. Remember a year ago from now, remember they said that state law changed, and if you were direct cert, you automatically kicked to free, which kicked our numbers the highest they've ever been before. I think our transferred at risk was 1.2 total or something like that million, which is way higher than it ever has been. And so when we go into budget, that's something that, well, we had 475 last year, but that's when everybody direct cert was there, everybody rolled right over. So now everyone's reapplying. Do you go back to pre-COVID and put, 415? Do you go 450? But somehow we have to estimate what that number is, and that drives our general fund legal max, and it also drives our LOB legal max. And so
Are they gonna have that like last year it was Medicaid, if they qualified for Medicaid, even just.
That still exists.
that still exists, but you have to
But
reapply.
those
everybody
people
has
that
to
have to
reapply.
apply for that coverage.
That'll be the big thing, that most people were able to just go year to year to year for the last 3 years, and now they gotta go back and reapply for everything.
So current strategy is we'll shoot really high, so we make sure we have the authority. In the event it comes in, it's better than shooting low and then it coming in over and then you don't have the authority. So, and you guys know that general fund, your estimated general fund at budget time is always
Way higher.
way higher than what you're actually gonna do.
All right. Any questions about the meal prices?
I move
Any
to
motion?
approve the 2023-2024 student and adult meal prices as presented.
The second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we're at the part of our meeting where we're gonna do some executive sessions. You guys need a break, or do you want to just go into it? All right, so, yeah, so.
I don't have a lot to share, but I want you guys to be aware. That's up to you, yeah.
Okay. We'll start with 20. I move we go in executive session to discuss non-elected personnel under the exception of KMA, and open meeting shall resume at what's our point said. So 20 onto that, what's that?
Oh, seven.
7:07.
7:07.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. back. First thing we'll do is I give a final approval to the superintendent contract for the next year, a salary increase of 4.08%, like all the other administrators.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, next item is personnel. Any questions there?
So do we not have any more custodians at the high school? There's still no.
There's one there.
One.
With summer help too. So we have some high school students that are
Helping
helping,
to get things ready.
and Steve Squires, he's all over the district, but he helps if he to find people out, but yeah, we're looking.
Motion on personnel.
I move to approve the personnel report, including supplemental updates as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. 5-0.